Hi, so this is another video from my bots or bit on the side range. This is just to indicate that it's looking at a game that I'm playing that's not actually part of the main channel. I last did one of these when I was playing a little bit of Black Desert Online. Now, Elder Scrolls Online, I've just started playing the last couple of days now. I've got my Christmas break. I'm going to do it a little bit more as well. But I'm not a new player to it as such. I feel like it, certainly. I did actually play this at launch. In fact, I was really looking forward to it. In fact, I've played a few MMOs, none as much as World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft's the only one I've sort of ever stuck with. But I've played quite a few, and I have never looked forward to any game of any kind actually coming out as much as Elder Scrolls Online. Because although I was never selected to take part in the proper beta, I was able to get into, like anyone would have been able to, into those weekend betas that were coming out, was effectively for stress testing. And you could only really try the sort of starting areas for the various factions. But, I saw enough of that I actually was really looking forward to it. I'd never played any Elder Scrolls Online on games before. In fact, I even did a few videos before I was, again, doing a channel. I had a YouTube channel, but only really to post things for friends and stuff like that. So I've just been looking back in April, May 2014. There's still some videos on my channel for Elder Scrolls Online. And then, I would say after a couple of months, I just stopped. And it wasn't that I got bored with it or anything like that. I just became frustrated with it. And it was never going to be the main game for me. It was always going to be World of Warcraft. But World of Warcraft has these periods where, as a raider, you're really, really busy with that. And then you sort of ease off a bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the things that were really bad with Elder Scrolls Online at the launch. And I'm going to look at those things and see if it's any better now. And some of them it very much is. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this video and I wouldn't have been playing it for the last couple of days. One of the main things was the bugs, of course. This game released. Now, first of all, it released... The developers said at the time, I'm hoping they're not sticking to this story because it's clear, obvious lie is obvious. But they said that they were developing this MMO and thought, oh, hey, do you know what? This would actually work as well for a console. We should do it for a console as well. We all know that's bullshit. They've created it for a console and, of course, for the PC market as well, which is the established MMO market. And as a result of that, a lot of the UI features are needlessly fiddly for PC. Now, of course, we don't expect them to create two totally separate games, but I do feel, and still feel now, I certainly felt at the time, that some functions, just simple party functions when you're grouping, it's an MMO for goodness sake, are just fiddly, much fiddlier than they need to be, simply because it's a UI designed for a console. But that wasn't what stopped me completely. I mean, after a while, I suppose you get used to it. I'm sure that more experienced Elder Scrolls Online players probably now think, well, actually, it's already straightforward once you get used to it. I don't know whether that's true or not. I guess it is. But the bugs were a different matter. Now, the problem with Elder Scrolls Online is, I remember I've been Heart Pact is like my faction, and I leveled through like Stonefall's like the first proper zone. And then I'd done all the quests as far as I knew, and I moved to the next zone. And it was all right to begin with. It was okay. It was okay. I was doing the quest. And then it started to get a bit tough. I would say halfway through the zone. And I started to feel I could do with being another level or two up. And I was wondering if, okay, I haven't been doing many dungeons. I'd done a couple of dungeons. I mean, dungeons itself was not that straightforward. I'd done a couple of dungeons that were all right. The first dungeon I did was great because the people in there had done it before. We went through. It was relatively straightforward. I died a couple of times, but it was all right. Then the next dungeon, it was with no one knew what they were doing, but it was actually fun because people stuck at it. We wiped and wiped and wiped it, but people stuck at it. No one went, oh, I've had enough of this and buggered off. But then when I tried to join there was literally the only two dungeons I did because every other dungeon I tried to do, a party formed, and then people would struggle to find their way there, or they would just give up before they'd even got there, or just leave as soon as we had all got there. And it was all back to the days of much more, much older MMOs now, where it's a real bind to get a group together. And you have to do it all sort of manually. So I eventually gave up. So I was wondering if that was the reason. But then I sort of looked at a few things and I thought, There's a little area I'd missed in the first zone, a quest hub. I just completely missed. I hadn't been led there or anything like that and hadn't seen it. So I went back there, did those quests, then came back to the other one. I was another level or two up then. And it went much more smoothly. So then I realised I have to do everything. I have to go to every last nook and cranny of each map to find every single quest because I can't afford to miss out even a little quest hub. Otherwise, I'm going to get behind with the leveling. That was one huge issue. In fact, when I did... I can't remember the name of the zone now. Before you go to Cold Harbour, I think. And I didn't have a high enough level to get there. I had to grind out mobs. Or it might have been the last one. I can't remember. But you had to get to a particular level to go to, like, and go and sort of mull a ball out. And I hadn't... I'd done all the quests and I had done everything. So I thought, well, this is really bad. There aren't enough quests in the game. It's yeah, sure, if I'd done all the dungeons as well, I would have done. But then to expect you to have done every single quest in every single zone and every single dungeon, or at least a lot of dungeons, when it wasn't that easy to get dungeon groups together, as a player who wasn't playing with friends or anything like that, that's asking a lot. And then the other thing was, that itself took quite a long time just to level up that, because there were a couple of times when you got to a particular quest and it was just bugged, and bugged for everyone, not just bugged for me. Not bugged where you reload and it sorted itself out, or relog, or just come on the next day. Actually bugged, and it took several days for this bug to be fixed. And that happened twice, I remember. And that stops you dead, because these were part of major quest lines that you could go no further. In one case, couldn't go to the next zone because this quest wasn't complete. So I didn't even have the option of going to the next zone and just grinding out extra mobs to get up the levels. So but I stuck with it all the way through that. Now, in the meantime, what I did, obviously, roll a few outs and do stuff like that, and then did a bit of PvP. Now, the PvP I really liked. This, whenever I talk about PvP not being so good in some other MMOs that I play, I look at Elder Scrolls Online as a really good model. Now, I'd played Warhammer Online before it, and I like the PvP model in that. And that is that PvE was sort of separate. You're not going to be round in the world and suddenly get ganked by enemy players. Because if you're in PvE areas, you're a PvP player, you don't actually want that. But if you want PvP, and you want to be... The Elder Scrolls Online model was brilliant, because there was a reason to go to, like, Cyrodiil without necessarily even wanting to PvP, because there were sky shards there were quests and stuff like that there. So there was still a reason to go there. But when you did get there, and it had that really good PvP model as well, where you just join up with roaming groups. And it was vast, huge, and loads of things to do there, loads of objectives. And it was so much fun. And siege engines, it was just everything that I could possibly want from PvP, because until I played Warhammer Online, I thought that I just didn't like PvP in MMOs, because I'd played other MMOs and it'd just been so god-awful. And then Warhammer Online showed me that PvP can be fun, if that's like a focus. And then Elder Scrolls Online continued that with an even better version. So I really enjoyed that. But then some other things that sort of did it for me, as well as the bugs. The bugs were really bad, but I sort of knew bugs happened. The main problems with these bugs were not that they existed. Bugs exist. It was the fact that, one, they stopped you dead in your tracks. You couldn't just go, okay, this quest bug, I'll just go and do those others. Some of them these quests had to be done. No quest should ever have to be done when you're leveling, because this is a real big reason why. And the other thing was there just wasn't enough content without doing all the stuff, without doing loads and loads of dungeons, without doing every quest in every zone. You were going to be falling behind in levels, not only finding the newer stuff more difficult to do, but actually just not being able to move on to the next zone. And that was pretty bad as well. And then the thing that was the nail in the coffin for me is you got to level 50, which is level cap, and still is now, because that's not the real level cap. Then you finish the main quest line, and then someone says to you, oh, great, you've done. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go and do the other factions leveling content. And you have these things called veteran ranks that you get from 1 to 10. And the content is like the normal leveling content you've just done, but much, much harder. You'd actually now benefit from, because you didn't really benefit that much from being in the group while you were leveling, and the normal leveling content. But now it's much, much more difficult. So you're going to find it much tougher, which you can still do it. But some encounters you would have to think about it and approach very carefully, and maybe change skills on your bar just to tailor it for that. And it slows you down, of course, so it takes a lot longer. So it turned into a proper grind. And it was like, I've already done some of the questing on these other factions. I did it by rolling a character on those other factions. And if I want to see those other factions quests, that's what I will do. So yeah, at that point, that just stopped me dead. I just thought, had enough, it's gone. Now, coming back to it now, so what has changed? First of all, everything. They have this One Tamriel thing. For those who play it, of course, you'll already know this, and those who don't. It's now a perfect synergy, I think, of PvE. And I haven't tried the PvP yet. I can well imagine I'm going to get my arse kicked if I'll go in there. But the PvP I always liked anyway. The PvE, what you can do now is you can just basically go everywhere. Everywhere scales to you. So you certainly don't have to be going ferreting around in the nooks and crannies of every zone to find every last quest. As long as you're doing the main quest lines and moving through, you'll be okay. But if you want to go and play with someone else who's on another faction, this is the big thing with MMOs. You have factions. Of course you have factions because you need them for PvP. But they're a complete bind in PvE. Because let's say your friend plays on one faction, you play on another. Because, you know, for the races or whatever reason. Well, you can't play with each other. Elder Scrolls Online, you can. You know, you can be in different factions and you can group up together. You can quest together. You can do the quests. In PvE terms, as far as I can tell, from what I've read and what I've experienced, there are no barriers. Other things that have not even things I necessarily wanted of this new Elder Scrolls Online that are really, really good as well. The Crown stuff. Now, when it first came out, it was billed as being it's subscription only, and everyone questioned this because, like, okay, World of Warcraft is subscription only, but every other MMO is either free to play or it goes free to play bloody quickly. And they were insisting, no, it's not going to happen with this. Not going to happen with this. Oh, by the way, we're going free to play, of course. But they have a really good, and some MMOs do have a good free to play system whereby you can still have the option of a subscription, and then you just play it as if it was just a subscription-based game. You don't have to worry about the store or anything like that. The Elder Scrolls Online is really good. Now, I think I've seen some people complain about the Crown Store in terms of getting... You can buy, like, crates, like loot crates, and then either get some special items from them or deconstruct them to get the gems just to buy the special items that you actually want from the store. Now... They're very expensive for what you get, and that is true. There's nothing wrong. But the thing is, you don't need anything. It's all purely cosmetic, and there's enough stuff just to get with crowns. And you get, obviously, some crowns, which is the currency on the online store, with your subscription anyway. I'd kept a subscription up even though I wasn't playing the game, so I had a healthy number of crowns when I came back. And I've been able to get myself some nice little transmog kits, which work really well, as well as some nice mounts and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't really need... There's nothing on there that makes me think I want to spend extra money getting even more crowns. Now, Star Wars: The Old Republic, different matter. In fact, I have bought extra, like cartel coins or whatever they're called, on that to get more stuff. So, Elder Scrolls Online, I would say it's pretty good from the point of view of you don't need it. And if you're paying a subscription, you definitely don't need it. So... I don't have an issue with what anything costs on there because you can do a lot of things that are there for convenience, like boosting your mount, experience scrolls, but you don't. There's nothing there that's going to make your character better. Nothing. You can't even get crafting stuff off it, as far as I can tell, like motifs and stuff. But you know, in terms of crafting materials, so you haven't got anything that's there of material use to your character. Even when the player housing comes in a couple of months, and I gather there's going to be some Crown Store specific stuff, but again, it'll be stuff you don't need. It's nice to have. I will certainly want to get a house, but it's So the store aspect of it doesn't, like with some MMOs, it's really money grubbing, and this doesn't seem like that to me. I don't know what some other players feel. Some players will inevitably feel that way because there are some players who just want an MMO to be purely subscription based and they don't want a store. And they will just see any sort of store, I think, as being inherently bad. But I don't see it. I've not been tempted to go onto that store and pay money to get extra crowns. I just don't need it. I've still got 5,000 crowns left after my spending spree, and that's plenty. I might develop a character to give them vampirism at some point, and just get it off the crown store rather than trying to get it some other way, just out of pure laziness because I've got the crowns to do it. Who knows? Now, there are still some gripes, though. I'm going to finish this one off because I don't want it to go on too long. There are still some gripes. One of them is that you can't keybind like multiple things. You can't do Shift and 5, for example, something. I would like to do, say, Control and 5 for certain things and Alt 5 for other things and stuff like that. Because that's what I use in MMOs in general. I like to have similar functions on similar keybinds because then I don't get confused when I move from one game to another. You can't do that on Elder Scrolls Online. It's not having it. Which is really annoying. It's really awkward because there's only so many keys in comfortable use, and you need almost every key to do something in Elder Scrolls Online, unless you want to go flicking through loads of menus, which I don't, because again, it's designed for consoles, and I understand you're going to have some fiddliness on a console, and yes, you're going to have to design a UI to be as intuitive as possible, but I don't see why you have to have that same UI on a game. Another thing that's really annoying and is still there now is there are a number of abilities that put a buff on you, and there are a number of abilities that put a debuff on the enemy. Great. Don't see them unless you've got an add-on. How am I going to track them? They have this nice, clean UI. It's really nice. There's not lots of clutter on it. But you should at least have the options to put stuff in, I feel. I don't think, normally when you think about add-ons, you sort of think about the stuff for min-maxers, the special stuff that most players don't need at all, just to play the game casually. You sort of feel on Elder Scrolls Online that you're missing out on some basics without them. Now, I've got something that tracks buffs and debuffs. It's not terribly convenient. I need to work out. Presumably, I should be able to move them around the screen somehow. I don't know about that yet. I'm going to get a mini-map add-on, I think, because although you can get away without it, I'm sort of okay without it. It's one of those things I'm sort of on the hedge about. I feel that we should probably have the option of one. I'm not saying all these things should necessarily be there, but have the option to put them in or not. At least there's options for like auto loot and stuff like that, which is quite good. That's quite useful. The crafting, now, in terms of crafting, the crafting I've always been really positive about in Elder Scrolls Online. It's really, really good that you actually make gear for yourself. And it's good. And you do that, as far as I know, throughout the game. I don't. Now that you get into because now that they've replaced veterans levels, you're not having to redo all this content like that. You just do what you want, and they replaced it with champions levels. I don't know if you can craft stuff all the way up to there. I'm not convinced, but certainly at the level I'm at, I can craft myself stuff if I've got the materials, and I can go out and farm the materials. That's excellent. I love crafting in any MMO, but one drawback in every MMO I've ever played is that unless you're going to really slow yourself down with leveling, and at level cap especially, it's not really all that useful. Crafting is very rarely directly useful to you. In terms of making equipment, should we say. Sometimes with things like enchants and potions and stuff like that, yeah, sure. Elder Scrolls Online, totally different. All those professions are actually really useful to you all the way through. Whether you'll be able to keep up to date or not is another matter. Like, I spent loads of my skill points on crafting. I hardly had any to spend on anything else on my main character. And one that got very far behind was enchanting. There was a big issue because, I don't know whether it's still the case now, I've not tested this out, but you can get points towards your crafting skill by creating things, of course, but also deconstructing them for materials. And you got more for deconstructing someone else's work. So the synergy was you create a load of stuff, someone else who's got the same profession creates a load of stuff, and you swap with each other and deconstruct each other's. Or just sell some stuff on the auction house and buy other stuff and deconstruct other people's stuff. Whatever. Now, it wasn't a major problem for the other professions because you'd still got enough to keep up to date. But Enchanted just fell behind because you got almost nothing for deconstructing your own stuff. And it became very, very difficult to get, for me, as a player who wasn't playing with friends, to get glyphs from other players. Now, the solution, of course, in any MMO is the auction house. And this is the biggest gripe of all I have. I don't know whether it's improved. It sort of has in some ways and not in others. In that there is no auction house, as you understand it, in most other MMOs. There are guild stores. You have to be a member. You can be a member of multiple guilds, and you have to be a member of a guild, and you can only trade on the guild store. So, in other words, with other guild members. Now, the problem with this is, I was joined a few guilds, and there was almost no activity on the guild stores. I could hardly shift anything I put on there, and hardly anything that I wanted I could buy. It was very difficult for me to even buy. So I really fell behind with the enchanting. So I had two gripes here. One, that enchanting was significantly behind the others. They'd done something to make it much more difficult to level. I don't know whether that's been fixed. I hope so. I don't know, though. And the other thing was this idea of having to join guilds to be able to trade, because I'm thinking, well, as a casual player, I'm not going to get into a big trading guild. I mean, what's going to have to be the deal? Do I have to join up on a weekend, put a load of my stuff on there, buy what I want, and then get kicked out because I'm not online for the next few days or I'm not doing a lot of trading in the next few days? How does it work? Do I keep doing that? Because there's only limited space in these guilds. But one thing I noticed, I don't know whether this was in from the start and it's just that no one had done it yet, but I noticed when I was in Davern's Watch, one of the main city I like to go to, because it's got all the profession stuff all really close and convenient. And there's an NPC you can go to and you can actually buy stuff off a guild store. A guild that I'm not a member of. So that's quite good. So at least I'm able to buy some materials now, as far as I can tell. I don't actually know how that works in detail. But I haven't yet, in terms of me selling, I haven't yet tried. Because there's plenty of people, this is really strange, this is certainly not what was the case when it came out, saying, oh, join this guild store, basically trading guild. It's like people actively asking people to join them. But again, I strongly suspect it'll be a case of, as a casual player, get an invite, maybe only do this when I've got loads of stuff, sell it all really quickly on there, or put it on the guild store site, or guild store, and then buy what I want as well, and expect to be kicked within a couple of days, and then repeat the whole thing again another week or two later. Is that how it works? I don't know. But yeah, the auction house was a big drawback for me, but not a killer. It's not the thing that killed it off. What killed it off, as I say, was these veterans ranks and just the way that's leveling, which has completely gone now. It's absolutely brilliant. There's not only loads more zones than you can possibly need. So in other words, loads more questing. You don't have to do everything. You don't feel you have to finish a zone before you move on now. Everything's scaled to you. You can be playing, like as a level 5, you can be playing with a level 50 who's doing their champions ranks, and this is fine. And that's really good as well. And it's just now perfect. It's almost like it has gone from being a game I couldn't stick for more than 2 months. And even then, I mean, in the first few days, I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? But I was looking forward to it so much, I stuck through it longer than I would have done with another game. To now, I see it as, in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways, the model of how an MMO probably should be. From PvP point of view, I haven't tried the PvP yet. As I say, I'm not expecting to do well. With my level 50 but 40 champion levels character and a few others. See, that's the other thing as well. I'll not level that one up too much because I've got other ones that I want to level up as well. But I'm going to be a casual player with this one because it's a casual game for me personally. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant from that point of view. It's just, I wish the social interactions worked better. I wish the party functions worked better. I'm also fearing going to a dungeon because it could well be the same thing as I see other people experiencing World of Warcraft. Like sometimes it's quite clear people don't know what they're doing in a dungeon. And a lot of people are quite nice about it. But they'll still rush off and just leave you behind, even though they won't have a go at you. And some people will have a go at you and maybe even kick you from the group, and it's not your fault, you're a new player. I sort of fear the same thing happening, that I get left behind or I die all the time and people just facepalm, and some nice ones will just put up with it, and some less nice ones will just get sick of me. And that'll probably not be a very pleasant experience at all. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about doing dungeons at the moment, but maybe when I've played it up a little bit more, maybe then. But anyway, that's what I found about returning to Elder Scrolls Online. So far, it's been very, very positive. I don't think there are any new features that have made the game less good. There are plenty of features that have made it much, much better. And as I say, a real model for how an MMO should be. There are still the gripes, as I say, with it, but they're very minor. And I can see this being like a weekend game for me. I really can. And we'll see how long it continues. And I'll maybe do some updates if it does. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Until next time, I'll see you later.